Welcome back to a brand new Mandalorian spoiler review here on Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Tinberg. So we're going to break down episode 6 of The Mandalorian. I'm actually going to really, I got a very passionate opinion now on the season as a whole and what's to come in the last 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. So stay tuned here for this video. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. So please subscribe, ring the bell if you're new to the channel. I do these types of TV show reviews, movie rankings, and a box office breakdown show. So please subscribe, ring the bell if you're new to the channel. Comment down below. What are your thoughts on this episode? Give me your overall thoughts on the season as a whole as we're speaking right now. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it your least favorite season? Let me know in the comment section. Also, please like the video, guys. The thumbs up button. So as I said, usually I don't judge seasons right away. And I don't want to give full judgment on this show until I see all 8 episodes. But I really thought that this was the worst episode of The Mandalorian in all 3 seasons. I thought it was a horrifically bad episode that, yes, there were some fun to be had, but I was just sitting there and it felt like the show went backwards in a completely different direction than I thought, because I actually really liked episode 5. I think it was my second favorite episode of the season. And it felt like the show had momentum heading into its last 3 weeks. We ended with Bo now trying to be the person who unites all of the Mandalorians, and you're ending with Moff Gideon escaping his ship. And it felt like the show had tons of momentum. And then you also heard that this episode would be directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who's been directing at least 1 or 2 episodes a season since season 1 of The Mandalorian. She also directed the first Mandalorian episode in Book of Boba Fett. So she usually gets the big episodes. If I'm not mistaken, she was also the director of season 2, the Bo-Katan's debut in live action. So she has directed some pretty important episodes of this mythology in the last couple of years. And I think a lot of people were thinking this would be the big episode because Bryce Dallas Howard was directing. And at least on IMDb, it just says Rick Famuyiwa, who's now moved into executive producer, will be directing the final 2 episodes. So I'm not sure if that's confirmed or not, but at least IMDb is saying that. But I thought this is a really horrendous episode. We'll get into the episode, which is that Mando and Bo, we killed the episode with someone in an Imperial starship, and it's Bo's old crew from last season of The Mandalorian. That one guy, I forgot his name, really sorry to say. But I also know Mercedes Moné, who used to be Sasha Banks in WWE, now wrestling in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now she is back in the show as well. And the whole goal is now Bo is trying to unite the clans, and she's going to start with her old crew that abandoned her when Bo said she wanted to reclaim Mandalore following the ending of season 2. So they go to this planet where they know they are, and we run into the people who run this planet, which is a couple played by Lizzo and Jack Black, which really took me aback at first. I was like, is that really Jack Black in Star Wars? And it was. And I felt like all of the comedy missed of Jack Black. And I am an absolute mega fan of Jack Black, but I just didn't find anything funny in the scene. And for me, it felt more like an SNL sketch than or a sketch comedy scene than it actually fit into Star Wars. And again, Bill Burr is in Star Wars, but his character isn't a stand-up comedian or is not a joke. That character has a lot of interesting things going on with him in the first 2 seasons. And I feel like it was just Jack Black and Lizzo. It was not, I think Bill Burr was actually playing a character compared to those other 2 characters. Now, obviously, these are clearly not as well written and won't get as nearly as much screen time as Bill Burr's character in the first 2 seasons. But for me, it felt like an SNL sketch when we were sitting down with all the creatures eating food. It just felt like a joke to me. So we keep on going, and they basically say, if you help us with this, as usual with Mandalorian, if you help us with this, we'll get you information, which is basically we'll give you the way to find your old people. And it's that all these droids that are like running the planet are malfunctioning for some reason. Then we get to the head of like the security of the whole planet, who's keeping track of all of this. And that's another cameo played by Christopher Lloyd, who's always great to see when he comes on screen. So this whole episode is like a detective episode with Mando and Bo trying to figure out why the droids are malfunctioning. And I felt like we went completely backwards. And once I knew this was going to be the whole episode, I was like, rough. And this episode was just boring meandering, and also just pointless. Which I hated to say because I just love Bryce Dallas Howard and I don't really blame her. It's the story they chose to really give for her to direct. I just feel like it's a horrible way to take the show moving forward. So we run into some Ugnaughts, and Mando Ozzy brings up that he's friends with Quill, and he says, "I have spoken," which is a fun bit, while Grogu stays with Lizzo, and that's a whole thing this episode. But overall, towards the end of the episode, Mando and Bo figure out that it was actually Christopher Lloyd's character that's been doing everything. And they let Mando and Bo now go to Bo's old friends. And Bo challenges the guy just to a duel. Bo wins. And then Mando, who could have said this 10 minutes earlier, he's like, actually, a couple episodes ago, basically, I fought the Darksaber. I lost the Darksaber to someone. I lost in battle with the Darksaber, and Bo won in battle with that Darksaber. So now she gets to reclaim it. They found a way to make sure Bo and Mando don't fight. And I was actually kind of hoping they kind of maybe even went in that direction, but they didn't. And that was the episode of Bo reclaiming not just her clan, but the Darksaber in a span of 5 minutes. I feel like there was a lot of build to this moment, and it just kind of just happens. These are people who left her for a reason, and after a 2-minute fight, she has now won back her entire old friends and the Darksaber. It was absolutely ridiculous, and I just really didn't like this episode, and I feel like the show, again, went backward. We had a lot of momentum with Bo uniting the people, but again, this whole ending of this episode could have been a whole episode of Bo trying to regain their trust, the debate about who really is the owner of the Darksaber, but we do it in like the last 5 minutes of a meaningless episode. I just found it to be absolutely deflating when I finished this episode, and it's probably the most deflated and annoyed I've been ever watching the show, because then I love this show, and overall it's probably one of the best things they've done for me, at least since Revenge of the Sith back in 2005. And the season was going good. I think another big problem that the show has continued is I'm not quite sure Jon Favreau, Filoni, and the people who created the show, really Favreau, were expecting to have Grogu moving forward. It did seem like that when they ended with Grogu in season 2, it felt like that's where they wanted to leave him and then focus more on the Mando and Bo aspect of it. And for me, Grogu is just a bit of a distraction now at this point. Grogu just did not need to be in this season of The Mandalorian, especially when it's just all Mandalorian-driven, focused. We can always get back to Grogu, especially because this show's going to have a lot more seasons, I think, moving forward. But I just feel like every time they cut back to Grogu and try to start something with Grogu, it just feels like a distraction from the overarching story. And the other thing, obviously, is that Mando just doesn't feel like he has an arc going on at all this season, because the whole thing we were building up to following the end of The Mandalorian and what they set up in the Book of Boba Fett was for him to be redeemed. And he gets redeemed in the second episode. And I think they should have built that out also a bit longer, because now Mando has no arc. Which I am fine with Bo-Katan taking the lead, but it just feels like, again, Mando and Grogu don't feel as necessary as they should, even though they're probably the two main characters of the first 2 seasons, which I found very interesting. So right now, I am at a total disappointment now with the season on basically how the show is going. I felt like this episode had some fun in it, but also had some sketch comedy at it where I was like laughing at the show more than laughing with the show. And some really stupid logic points in the last 5 minutes of this episode that just really made me angry towards the end of this episode. So for me, I am absolutely disappointed now with the show. Again, they could easily win me back over with these last 2 episodes, but I don't think I can find a way to put this, at least for now, definitely not over seasons 1 or 2 of The Mandalorian. And it's really disappointing because I love this show. I had a lot of anticipation, but as you can tell on social media, no one's really talking about the show. Now we'll see. There obviously should hopefully maybe some big reveals, which I don't really need to make the show good, but basically these creators and actors have basically said that there's going to be some big surprises these last 2 episodes. Obviously, we have the Ahsoka show coming out in a couple of months. We also have Star Wars Celebration this weekend. We'll probably hear more news about The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. So if there's big enough news from Star Wars Celebration, then I'll probably do a video early next week to talk about that. But if not, yeah. So that's my overall spoiler thoughts on episode 6. I'm just not happy with the direction of the show, and they really need to win me back with these last 2 episodes. So thanks for joining me on another breakdown of The Mandalorian. Please subscribe, ring the bell. I'll see you guys soon.